Welcome back to another episode of Into the Word, your weekly bite-sized dose of Bible with me, Pastor Jonty, and Rev Ness.
Hey.
How are you today?
I'm good. I love a miracle story. You know me and the miracle thing?
Absolutely. You're big into miracles.
Hot for a miracle.
Yeah. So today we're looking at, depending who you ask, whether you're asking Jesus or a Pharisee, quite a controversial miracle, which we'll get into. Jesus heals, can you believe it, on the Sabbath.
Oh, good heavens. Good deeds on the Sabbath.
Yeah. Is there any context we need to know before we just dive in, or should we dive straight in?
Oh, I think that they were, a bit of a den of vipers going on out there, and they had the shits with Jesus already. And so they were wanting to catch him out. And there is some theologians and thought that potentially this withered man in this story that we're about to read was potentially set up by the Pharisees or the scribes as a plant.
Interesting.
But the thing I find fascinating about that is that they think that they can trick the Son of Man.
Yeah.
You know, that they actually thought that would be a good, clever trick to do, and bam, we'll get him now because he'll do a healing. But before we go there, you read it.
Yeah, there's so much text there.
Yeah,
I'm going to read so we can get into it. This is Mark chapter 3, verses 1 to 6. If you're reading along, it'll be on the screen as well. Jesus heals on the Sabbath. Another time, Jesus went into the synagogue, and a man with a shriveled hand was there. Some of them were looking for a reason to accuse Jesus, so they watched him closely to see if he would heal him on the Sabbath. Jesus said to the man with the shriveled hand, "Stand up in front of everyone." Then Jesus asked them, "Which is lawful on the Sabbath? To do good or to do evil? To save life or to kill?" But they all remained silent. He looked around at them in anger and, deeply distressed at their stubborn hearts, said to the man, "Stretch out your hand." He stretched it out, and his hand was completely restored. Then the Pharisees went out and began to plot with the Herodians how they might kill Jesus. This is the word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
This is, and he says it here, which is lawful on the Sabbath, to do good or to do evil, to save life or to kill. He's frustrated, not just with the Pharisees, but with the people in the synagogue.
Yeah.
At the way that their religion
Yeah.
has gotten in the way of looking after the people around them.
The law, the thou shalt nots.
Yeah.
Which
So,
there was hundreds of.
An important piece of context, there's a law against working on the Sabbath.
Oh, yeah. 10 commandments, and out of that they made a whole bunch of laws. Of 200 and something of them were thou shalt nots, of which a bunch of things that Jesus did angered the Pharisees and the scribes at this day. And I think it's interesting that this story is talked about in Matthew, Mark, and Luke.
Yeah.
And so it's there. It's an exciting bit of text. But before he gets to the synagogue to heal the man with the withered hand, and the withered hand that we're thinking is a congenital birth defect.
Yep.
But potentially I was reading that he was also possibly a stonemason who'd had a work injury to that withered hand as well. So he wasn't in a great way, and he's wanting healing because he wants to be able to work. So on this particular day, Jesus had healed a paralyzed man at the pool of Bethesda.
Yeah.
Now, I was only in Jerusalem last September, and I went to the pool of Bethesda, and I can visualise where that is, and I can visualise then walking up the hill to the synagogue. Jesus, it's only probably 10-minute walk up the hill, and Jesus would have done that all in this one day. But that would have absolutely aroused the word would have been out there. He's done a healing in full sight of people. He's spent all this other time doing a healing, don't tell anybody. But now he's doing these healings in front of people.
And in a provocative way that's
very
breaking the law.
On the Sabbath. That's exactly right, yeah. In this story, they were travelling on the way, and I can imagine they would have been maybe coming down through Bethany, down the hill, Mount of Olives, and having grain. And in the laws, that it talks about you can actually pick some grain on the Sabbath, only enough to quench your hunger.
Right.
Not too much. I wonder
Not to generate profit.
No, that's exactly right. So there's even rules around it's grain to satisfy your hunger.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's even rules around what you can eat. And I think the Sabbath had become such a tyranny with hundreds of rules and regulations, and Jesus was furious with the detail that they were squirreling into. And my guess is that these Pharisees and scribes were not living by the letter of the law themselves and being and then pointing the finger at everybody else.
More intent on making sure everyone else follows the rules.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. The thing I love, there's so much to this passage and you could talk about it for many, many hours. The piece I love is this. Anytime that Jesus gets the shits, I love it because it makes me feel like I'm like him also and he gets me, right? Because it says, and when he had looked around at them with anger, being grieved by the hardness of their hearts, he said to the man, so he's looked around, he's clocked the bastards in the room and he's looking at their wicked, evil, hard hearts. He then goes back to the man with the withered hand and he says, stretch out your hand. And he stretched it out and his hand was restored whole as the others. And then this bit. Then the Pharisees went out immediately and plotted with the Herodians against him, whom they might destroy him. So these guys have got the shits that Jesus has healed a man on the Sabbath. Should they not have been thrilled that he'd healed a man, regardless of the Sabbath? The man, the justice for this man, Jesus saw in this man a need and was doing a miraculous thing to help this man in this man's life. And I think this is why Jesus was so furious.
Yeah.
The injustice.
Yeah.
It was righteous anger that he was feeling. And he just did what he needed to do in that moment. I just love it. High five,
Yeah.
It was such a controversy though,
Yeah. It paints such a strong picture of what is actually important to Jesus.
Yeah, 100%.
It's not about following the stupid rules that have just compounded over time.
No.
Especially if those rules get in the way of you actually helping the person standing right next to you.
Oh my gosh, the Pharisees were more concerned about obeying the letter of the law and they'd forgotten about the spirit of the law.
Yeah.
Right? And I think I love it because it's like the miraculous healing's almost like a exclamation mark. Or if I was rude, I'd say the rude finger.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? To say and hashtag I am the Lord, bitches. Bam, take that. It's just everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's impressive.
Yeah, so the main thing for me is like, and I'm guilty of this as well, looking at the way that my religion sometimes enforces behaviours in people that actually come in conflict with what I think the core message of the gospel is, which is radical love and inclusivity and grace and acceptance.
Justice.
When they come in conflict, into conflict with each other, and the law isn't the thing that bends, and we
should do it this way.
We put love to one side in the name of maintaining our religion. It says here, not only is Jesus angered by that, he's deeply distressed.
Oh, just yeah.
And
at the hardness of their hearts.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so I wonder.
We can see hardness of hearts in church, Jonty, on Sunday.
Absolutely.
We can be a bunch of Pharisees ourselves. Please don't hear me that I'm pointing the finger at these dudes.
Yeah.
They were just probably trying to do the best they could do.
Yeah.
They weren't filled with the Spirit, mate. They hadn't had the peace that we've got.
Yeah.
Right? Yet.
Yeah. There's like that main character syndrome thing where we love to put ourselves into the characters, into the stories that make us feel really comfortable. So we kind of go, I must be the person that gets helped by Jesus.
Oh, I know.
Maybe we're the Pharisees.
Yeah, we can be.
Quite honestly, at our place in history, in our place in the world, and in our place in the economic ladder of the world, we are very much the Pharisees. We cannot pretend for one moment to be the person that Jesus would go to first to help.
Yeah.
And that's a really confronting
Yeah.
thing.
Well, I mean, in church conversations about church property, we really need to, beautify this old building, but we'll do that instead of feeding the homeless,
Yeah.
right? I mean, is that Pharisee behaviour or what? That's not loving the neighbour.
Yeah.
That's, I know we have to care for these precious old buildings, but we really need to love the neighbour first, mate. We need to feed them. Come on.
Yeah.
I do not want to be before God and God say to me, if even this is a thing, hey, Ness, mate, what was with the painting the inside of church, mate, when there was those hungry people over there that you said you were going to feed?
Yeah.
And you painted the church instead. I don't want to have that combo with God. Just saying.
Yeah, and there's that really
You know what I
confronting.
mean?
There's that passage that I find terrifying. It's from the mouth of Jesus, talking about the sheep and the goats.
Yeah.
The way we will be judged is how we treat the least of these.
Yeah.
It's not about how well we keep the law and follow our religious boxes that we put in place. It's following the example that Christ lived out. And this is a great example of him just calling that out for what it is.
Oh, he's so radical.
Yeah.
Radical, screaming out the radical injustice of it all in a righteous way was so powerful. My role model, Jesus Christ.
It's pretty awesome. Yeah. Any final thoughts?
Oh, no, that's it, mate.
Yeah, that kind of
Yeah.
says it all, doesn't it?
Yeah,
So, I mean, if you guys listening and watching at home have any thoughts that you want to share with us, anything you want to contribute to this conversation, or even just if you have any requests that you want us to chat about in terms of pieces of scripture, send us an email at the email address on screen now or down below if you're listening on a podcast platform. That's just about it. We will see you on Tuesday for Filthy Hope if you're a Filthy Hope listener. If not, right back here for another episode on Wednesday.
Awesome.
Of Into the Word. We'll see you then. Have a good one.